I'm Cheryl Sleboda from Muppin.com. And I'm a fiber artist and quilter who loves heirloom sewing. And what I'm going to show you today is how to create this really interesting pleating technique that I do using simple lines on the back side of your fabric. So how I get started with this is you want to take either a ruler, or I use this template that's made for smocking because it has 1/2-inch lines already marked into it. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my pencil and I'm going to draw in each of the channels, and I'm going to do this all the way across the fabric and all the way down the fabric. And again, you can do this with a regular ruler, but I love tools that do double duty in my sewing room. And so this is one of those where you can use the same tool and you're just going to move all the way across the fabric. And what you're going to end up with is a fabric that has lines all the way across, and I'm doing this width of fabric. Now my pillow is going to end up being 18 inches square, or sorry, 16 inches square, and so I want to have 1 inch on either side, and so I'm going to do an 18-inch wide piece of fabric, and it's going to be width of fabric. Now this is quilting cotton, and so that's going to be 44 inches wide. So the trick to this technique is how you do the folds. And so I'm just going to turn this so that you can see. I'm going to do the first 3 lines. So the first line is 1, the second 2, and the third 3. 1, 2, 3. And the trick to this technique is you're going to take line number 1 and fold it until it matches up with line number 3. Now, you can take this to an iron and you can iron it, or you can take your finger and crease it just like this. And that's what I do. And what that does is it gives you a nice, even, long pleat. And when I fold this back, you can see lines number 1 and 3 are touching and 2 is inside the fold. Now I'm going to take this over to the machine and sew it so you can see how the first pleat is formed. So on the machine, I have my 1/4-inch piecing foot that you would normally use for your quilting. And I have a straight stitch on my machine. So I'm just going to lower my presser foot. And I'm butting up the fold, that would be line number 2, right along the edge of the foot that is going to create my 1/4-inch seam. So I'm just going to go ahead and start sewing. Now the really cool thing about this technique is when you start your pleat number 2. So I'm just going to pull that up, cut my thread. Oop, where's my cutter? There we go. All right, and now we're going to open this back up so that you can see line number 1 and 3 are still showing, but 2 is inside of the seam. So to start the next one, you're going to start with the next set past where your stitching line is. That new line, your former number 3, becomes line number 1. And you start with 1, 2, 3, and you're going to fold those so that 3 and 1 are touching. And again, I just use my finger to crease it. And you're going to go ahead and do this all the way down the length of this particular pillow length. Now again, if you do a shorter pillow or a smaller pillow, this is going to be a shorter line. You can also do this on any kind of fabric. So you're going to fold all of that out of the way. Now I have lines 1 and 3 still touching, and 2 is inside the fold. And I'm going to go ahead and sew. And that is how your second pleat is formed. And that's going to be true of all of the pleats that you do from here out. All right? So we pick that up, go ahead and give that a trim, and now you can see my 2 pleats have formed. So I'm going to go ahead and do this across the width of the fabric for the length of my pillow, and I already have one finished here where I've done every single pleat. Now, You could just leave it this way and do the sewing technique that creates the folds in the pleats, but we're actually going to take it a step further, and we're going to put on a different foot to do some decorative stitches. So we're going to go ahead and get the foot on, and then I'm going to change to my decorative stitch, and we're ready to sew. So you could put your decorative stitch inside each of the channels between your pleats, or you can alternate them or skip, do them randomly, and it really is up to you. So we're going to go ahead and start sewing our pleats, or our decorative stitch. Here we go. Here it goes. You have so many options now on your machine. It's time to get out all your decorative stitches and use them. So you can see there your stitches coming out on the other side. And I'm not going to go all the way down. I'm just going to stop here to show you. And I'm just going to pull that up. So you can see your decorative stitches there between your pleats. Now, like I said, you can skip every other, you can do them in every channel, you can do a different decorative stitch in every single one, which is kind of exciting. So take a look at your stitches that come with your machine, and it's time to play. I've already sewn all of these in every other channel, and I have pressed all of my pleats to lay in one particular direction. So I'm going to take off, I'm not going to take off this foot, I'm going to leave this foot on, and I'm actually going to change back to my regular stitch, straight stitch, and now I'm going to actually do the pleating technique, where it actually folds in different directions. So you could mark where you want your pleats to actually form, or you can do them randomly, which is what I like to do. And we're just going to sew straight down. And that's going to form the first pleat. And the trick, just like before, is on the second one. So we're going to take that, cut that off. And now we're going to flip it over, and we're going to fold down each pleat before it gets fed into the machine. And so you'll see how this works. And you can go slow so that you're not, and if you get one that flips back over, you can always stop and put your presser foot up and flip it the other way. There we go. And the cool thing about these techniques, these are very old techniques. They've been around for many years. They're heirloom sewing techniques. They're used in garments, in quilting, and all sorts of other different methods. You can use this for whatever project you're working on to create any kind of texture. So there you can see how the pleats are formed, and that allows the gaps to allow you to show your decorative stitches, which is really cool. And let's do one more row so you can see what that flips down the other direction. Now again, because everything is ironed in this direction, it's nice and easy to sew this direction, so they shouldn't have any problems flipping back up. So there we go. You just want to make sure that as you guide it into the machine, you just make sure they're all laying in the right direction. Okay, and what we've got at the end here is the little flipping back and forth that happens. Now again, I didn't mark these, but you could mark them so that they were very even, and you can see that you'll get that twist happening all across the length of the pillow. Now, when you're all finished with that, you need to create the backing. And what I've done is my pillow is 16 inches, and so I've created the back out of 2 separate pieces. And I have just taken one edge and folded it over and given it a straight stitch. And I have both of the sides with the raw edge pointing up and facing me. And then once I have them pinned in place so that they create the pocket on the back, I just take a ruler, measure out a 16-inch square, draw that on the back of my pillow, and then once I'm ready and my front of my pillow is all pleated, I put them right sides together so that I have my pencil line facing upwards, and I go ahead and sew around the entire pillow. So when I'm all finished with that, I just unpin it, fold it right sides out, trim it down to either a 1/4 or a 1/2 inch, and we're ready to put a pillow insert into it. So I really hope you enjoyed making these convertible pillow covers that you can make for any season and to match any decor you have in your house.